Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the Mason District along with the flooded metro. Now this location can be a little bit difficult to access as it's not just in the open world. There are three ways to access it. We can access it through the flooded metro, which we will show in this video. Additionally, you can come through Falls Church Metro, or you can use the Hubris Comics Utility Tunnels, which we will also show in this video. I prefer the Hubris Utility Tunnel simply because it is kind of far away and it allows us to get to this location relatively quickly, at least for the distance that we cover, well, really fast, as you will see. So let's waste no more time and let's jump into the Mason District. So we'll be starting our journey up here by Wilhelm's Wharf, which is way up here, kind of by the Super Duper Mart, and just east of Vault 101 and Megaton. And we'll be making our way all the way down south near Falls Church, and there's Mason District and Flooded Metro on the world map. Again, we're covering a lot of land, or a lot of distance, relatively quickly, thanks to metros and service tunnels. So right here, just north of the Wilhelm's Wharf, we will find the utility tunnels, just this kind of sewer pipe. We'll make our way through Hubris Comics all the way to the entrance of Hubris Comics, and we will come outside in the Mason District. Now, immediately, I was attacked by Talon Company mercs. If you have evil karma, they'll probably be regulators. Additionally, there is a huge gang of super mutants here. So this poor Talon Company merc over here got absolutely destroyed by the super mutants, which I just thought was kind of funny. But I did want to mention that if you go through the utility tunnels, obviously I went really fast, and that's because I talked about it in my previous video about Hubris Comics. So if you want a more detailed guide about how to navigate the tunnels, please check out that video. The tunnels, while claustrophobic and a little bit confusing, are pretty straightforward. Just keep going straight, don't go backwards, and eventually you will find Hubris Comics, and then you can make your way here to the Mason District coming out of Hubris Comics. So I dealt with the super mutants by using a missile launcher. There were two super mutant masters along with a lot of brutes and about a half dozen of them, but using the missile launcher I was able to thin them out pretty easily, and then I could loot all of the Talon Company mercs and super mutants. Now, immediately outside of Hubris Comics, we have this Pulaski Protection Shelter, and inside of it we can find a copy of Dean's Electronics along with some other random junk. We also have a statue here of this man walking through a hoop, marking Hubris Comics. Down below we have the Mason District, which features a huge playground. Now this is where the super mutants normally hang out, and in the middle we can find some shopping carts and an unfortunate captive who, of course, we will help because we're going for a good karma playthrough. I did want to mention that the Mason District is based on the real-life Mason District of the same name, located in Fairfax County, Virginia. And the Mason District in real life even has a park with a complete playground, very similar to the one we can find in-game. Of course, the one in-game, though, is flooded and irradiated now, so, it's not as nice as the one in real life, well, at least anymore. Now, also towards the middle of the park, we can find this kind of wagon or cart that has a bunch of ammunition boxes filled with 5mm rounds and 5.56mm rounds, along with several Chinese assault rifles. For whatever reason, all of the super mutants here are equipped with Chinese assault rifles, so it's a good place to pick some up, repair them, and then sell them later, or to use in your own arsenal. Now, if we head over to the northeastern part of the Mason District of this small park, we can find a ton of irradiated barrels. Don't know if this was put here pre-war or if it was brought here by super mutants or something. Who knows, but yeah, it's just sitting there next to a children's playground, so great location. Over here on the eastern part, we can find this kind of like parking lot that has tires and stuff inside of it. Not really sure what it would have been used for, actually, maybe a dumping ground or something, who knows. But if we head on over to the southwestern corner of the Mason District of this park, we can find an abandoned building, very similar to many buildings you might find in Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3. Up top, we can find a copy of Guns and Bullets and a ton of ammunition boxes, along with a skeleton that appears to have been shooting outside of this window. Who knows what happened to this poor skeleton, if it was a pre-war incident or more likely after the Great War. Also, next to that abandoned building, we can kind of find this corner with all kinds of like liquor, empty milk bottles. We also have some chems and stuff. Don't know if this would have been an old pre-war bar or cafe of some sort. But yeah, I just thought I'd point it out because I thought it was kind of cool. But besides that, in this abandoned building, there isn't a whole lot, but there is a sniper rifle next to the skeleton, so you can always pick that up if you want. I used it to repair my victory rifle, so yeah, pretty good. So that pretty much covers the Mason District North, so now we're going to head to the Mason District South. Now, the northern part of the Mason District is unmarked. It is only marked by the Hubris Comics map marker. Now, as we make our way south, we can find this huge billboard that has kind of fallen over that says Nuka Break, kind of like need a break. Now, there is a super mutant that was over here, just a lone super mutant, so pretty easy to kill. Now, there might be just some stragglers left over, not sure really, but I did find another super mutant at the top of this building, or not the top really, just the second floor. Again, pretty easy to kill when they are by themselves, not in a huge pack. Now, over here, we have an unknown, unnamed metro, but we cannot access it or have any clue where it actually goes because the entrance is pretty much caved in and it's inaccessible. Now, on the second floor of this kind of destroyed building, we can find 2 ammunition boxes, and this is the building where that super mutant was shooting us from. Couldn't find his body, though, so don't really know what happened to him. Completely disintegrated. But from up here, we can get a pretty good view of Mason District South, which just features these streets kind of convening together. And as we get towards the flooded metro, we can just find a ton of rad roaches and a ton of these radioactive barrels. Again, not sure how these barrels got here. Don't know if the super mutants brought them here or something, but hey, who cares? But as we make our way towards the flooded metro, we can find like a bus stop, some old like payphones and stuff like that, and some Vault Tech propaganda. Pretty cool. Then we'll go inside the flooded metro, and inside of here we can find a like snack machine, which is not really why we're in here, but we can find some pretty darn good loot in here. But this place might be a little bit confusing. However, I don't think it's too bad. At least I don't think it's as bad as like the Hubris Comics Utility Tunnels. Now, kill the Mirelurks in here. There's going to be a lot. And as you make your way in, eventually you're going to find a very large central staircase. There's going to be a lot of Mirelurks on this staircase, so just kind of eliminate them as you make your way down. Pretty sure that they are all leveled, because I had some Mirelurk Kings as I made my way down. At the time of making this, I was a level 21/level 22. Having Dogmeat with me was a huge help, especially with dealing with the Mirelurk Hunters. But basically, this staircase has several floors. On the top floor, well, that's where we came in. On the next floor, there is nothing. On the third to bottom floor, we find 2 doors. These doors are where we will go next. And on the very bottom floor, we just find a radioactive pond. There's really no point in going down here unless, well, you're trying to become a ghoul or you're just suicidal. But hey, you know, to each their own. Now, back on that third to bottom floor, we can find an open door and a closed door. I recommend going through the closed door first because this leads us to a dead end, but we can find a unique weapon in the very back here. You're going to find this room, and there's going to be a rigged shotgun. On top of this tool cabinet, there's a Nuka-Cola Quantum, so make sure you pick that up. Then you can look at the combat shotgun angrily for shooting you in the abdomen. And in the very back of this room, we can find a dead Wastelander, probably killed by Mirelurks. And then there's a really flooded portion, but this actually doesn't really go anywhere. Kind of just pointless. You can drink the water if you have a death wish. But heading back up, we can find on this barrel the Shocker, which is a unique power fist. And there's also a note that comes with it. And this note gives us a bit of description of what the Shocker is. It reads, "Dear consumer, thank you for your participation in the exciting Shocker Glove pilot program. You're receiving a prototype FSG version 118-B model of the Shocker Glove. Please reference this prototype number in any future correspondence. We encourage you to make this prototype a part of your daily life and look forward to your valuable feedback. Thanks from all of us at the Shocker Glove R&D team. P.S. Shocker Glove prototypes are not for use in water, public, near small children, or domesticated animals. This is not a kitchen appliance and should not be used near uncooked food. Use of the Shocker Glove prototype constitutes a binding agreement to hold manufacturer harmless for any and all legal purposes. During prolonged use, severe electronic burns may occur. Do not look directly at the Shocker Glove while operating. Some prototype models may have sensitive to certain radio frequencies during use. If you suspect radio interference, please submit a malfunction report listening FCC broadcast frequencies in the operation at the time, and report to the nearest emergency medical facility in your area." So the Shocker Glove was actually a consumer product designed to be, well, used against robots. So I guess if people were afraid of robots, they could buy the Shocker Glove. Now, heading back to that main room, to the third to bottom floor, we will now proceed through the door that was already open. and this will take us down a long tunnel just filled with Mirelurks, so be ready for a bit of a fight. But yeah, not too bad, especially if you have a companion with you, like I had Dog Meat. Now, I found a ton of Mirelurk Kings in this next room, so just be aware if you're a higher level, you might have a kind of a tough fight. Although, personally, I think Mirelurk Hunters are much more difficult than actual Mirelurk Kings. At least that's just my opinion. Maybe the Kings do more damage, but the Hunters have a lot more health. So having Dog Meat to distract them while I just shoot, and shoot some more is really helpful. Now, eventually you enter this large room with a staircase, and you can keep proceeding forward, in which case you are going to find a lot of Mirelurk eggs, a Mirelurk King, or perhaps a lower level Mirelurk, and that's pretty much about it. This is a dead end, and there's really no loot of use in this room. Just get some free radiation poisoning. There is a first aid box that had some rataways, so I mean, I guess it was all worth it. But as I turned around here, I got the shit scared out of me by this Mirelurk King. I don't know why it scared me so much, but it just did. And I have no clue where he came from, why Dog Meat was just like hanging out with him. But hey, whatever. It's just classic Fallout shenanigans. Now, eventually I decided to try out the Shocker. And yeah, the Shocker is pretty worthless against Mirelurks, so would not recommend. You might even electrocute yourself, but I mean, that's not really possible, but I'd like to imagine it's possible. But these Mirelurks, well, they didn't really care for my glove. It's supposed to be used against robots, so, you know, we'll try that at a later date in Fallout 3. But for now, I just switched to my Blackhawk, my special scoped 44, and this gun, especially if you can get some headshots on those Mirelurks, is really effective. Now, up in this upper area, we can find a whole lot of nothing, just kind of empty lockers. There is a rataway in that locker, that's nice. And you can also find some ammunition and stuff just kind of randomly strewn about, but for the most part, there isn't a whole lot. Now, as we make our way towards the other entrance of the flooded metro, we will find this kind of upstairs room. There's some lockers and stuff. And in the western corner of this room, we will find a generator. If you jump behind or just go behind the generator, you're going to find a skeleton, a ton of blood, a scoped 44. The skeleton's going to freak the fuck out when you loot it. And there's also a copy of Guns and Bullets. So definitely pick up that skill magazine. Now, as we make our way out of this room back into a chain of tunnels, we'll be greeted with another, well, Mirelurk. Who would have guessed? Now, as we continue making our way, eventually we will find a just normal door, which opens up into a metro station tunnel. And then we have that kind of classic Fallout 3 exit out of the metro. And this will take us to the flooded metro entrance, which is on the far southern part of the map. We just have a really kind of nice, like, beautiful entrance here. Now, up here we got another one of these Powalski preservation shelters. And inside, apparently, this is a Chinese spy, according to Todd Howard. There's also a Chinese training ops manual next to her. But this area was actually shown off at E3 in 2008. Wow, that was a long time ago. At a hands-on of Fallout 3, in which Todd Howard was playing and showing off the game, well, to G4 and E3. Wow, what a long time ago. Anyways, Todd Howard had this to say.
Quick. And it's optional, so you can play it like a first-person shooter, or you can do that. This is one of these protection pods you can get in and kind of avoid things. There are skill books you can find. Like
it didn't work for that guy, apparently.
This is a Chinese commando, so I'm finding stuff in there, and you can actually...
Anyways, just a kind of cool bit of Fallout history and the ever so wonderful Todd Howard. Now, along the highway next to the metro here, we can find a ton of cars and trucks, obviously long abandoned. And here we can find the flooded metro raider camp, and as the name would suggest, it is a camp full of raiders right next to the flooded metro. Now, these raiders are pretty easy to kill, and me and Dog Meat made quick work of them. However, there was one raider with a missile launcher who was kind of annoying, but yeah, we were able to kill her. But the thing to be the most careful of in this area is way off in the distance, you can find this sentry or Mark V turret that will be shooting you from really far away. I kind of had difficulty figuring out where it was, but using VATS, I was able to locate. I couldn't really tell just because of it's attached to a cage. For a second, I actually thought it was on the highway, but that would be ridiculously far away. Anyways, if we go over that raider with the missile launcher was, we can obviously take the missiles off the raider, and next to this bed we can find a copy of Tumblers Today, along with some ammunition boxes. Now if we head to the front of the raider camp, we can find all of these goodies and stuff on this counter. It appears to be some kind of bar. There is a bottle of Nuka-Cola Quantum, and also a copy of Pugilism Illustrated on the little bar there. And also there's like a cash register and stuff like that, pretty cool. And finally there is a raider on this kind of pedestrian bridge that we can just kill. Alright everyone, and there you have it, the Mason District and the flooded metro. Now this video was kind of a prototype for how I'm going to approach several of the locations on the eastern part of the map. Obviously the actual city of Washington DC is highly divided and highly fragmented by the metro system, so there's a lot of tunnels and stuff to get to different parts of the map. I'm just trying to figure out the best ways to show off the tunnels and the locations all at the same time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any feedback, please post it in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any ideas or recommendations for future videos or future locations, please post them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time.